We identified flooding as an issue. We identified there are two linked issues really, which is how do you make homes more sustainable, but at the same time also that touches on how you get the cost of living down. So an example that somebody mentioned was insulation, for example. That would deal with both of those, but homes are generally quite poorly insulated.
It was just generally the air quality in lots of places, and we were looking at sort of flooding in the area. The infrastructure is not sort of keeping up with the development, so there's causes sort of all kinds of problems with infrastructure as well, and sort of expansion of certain areas into what was green areas. The development of those, like the Shepperton Studios was one thing, where people had an outlook onto green spaces, is now being lost.
There are a lot of people in Spelthorne who simply don't have enough money to pay for the essential things that they need, such as a roof over their heads, food, energy. So there is actually quite a lot of poverty in Spelthorne. That I think is a big issue. So that's one.
I think we're talking about how everything's interlinked. So you tackle something and that has a ripple effect. So you've got to be really careful what you do in case it screws up the next thing that is a good idea. So the communication and the interaction of things was important.
We all know if something doesn't get measured, it doesn't get done, right? With all the good intent in your heart, you will not do it.
So Spelthorne in the future, I'd like to be a happy community where people are able to enjoy lots of open space and fresh air, and be able to live in their homes without fear of flood risk, and be able to get around with public transport, and being able to walk and cycle along safe cycle routes.
We began our second workshop with a celebration of what was achieved in the first workshop by screening a short video put together by us, the Digital Eco Warrior Youth Team.
The video contains a variety of voices and opinions and shows the amazing energy and enthusiasm that was generated.
Our first task was to reflect back on the challenges and future visions that we explored in the first workshop and begin to identify practical community-led climate initiatives that they wish to see happen in Spelthorne. These are some of the fantastic examples of the initiatives the group proposed.
Also sort of the collection of rainwater and storage and reuse of that for all kinds of things, from flushing loos to car wash and things, that we could use it more than just let it flush straight through.
In my opinion, the first thing we should do is in schools. They only teach me in a class with a textbook and a teacher pointing at a whiteboard. I've seen about the same video of the Amazon rainforest about 1 million times, and to this day, I'll be honest, I don't care. At the end of the day, I haven't seen much. They don't teach me anything. So in my opinion, we should go to outside camping. We should at least try to have an initiative to at least see the nature, see the roots, so then we can make a tree out of it.
And then we were looking at new builds. There's a lot of new builds going up everywhere in the borough, and making more green technology and eco-efficient systems built in right from the beginning of the process, so that they're super efficient, they're carbon neutral, and we are sort of putting that into the planning stages before permission's granted, so that there's an initiative to make sure people are looking at those sort of technologies and integrating them much further forward.
So one thing that I would want to see is a circular economy, and someone I follow some people who do sort of donut economics. So you look at the whole. We obviously at the moment we've got this way of growth where we're just kind of
always thinking we have to get bigger and better, but actually it comes to a point where you can't go any higher, so you have to start kind of reusing and reinvesting in what you have. So yeah.
Creating more green spaces, so more greenery, so biodiversity, maybe localised hot pockets of different types of biodiversity. So you could have like a wild meadow garden, one for bees, one for wild meadows, one for birds, like scattered around, so you would take that as an inspiration of what they can do in their own homes, things like that, so actually improve biodiversity in that respect. Also just increase the number of shaded areas. So obviously heat gets absorbed by concrete, which then gets back up. The more shade that you can create through trees and tree lines, that sort of stuff to break up that heat kind of being trapped into buildings. So that might be greenery on the buildings and things like that, just sort of reflecting out the heat that way.
We sort of initially focused on, I suppose, three main areas. Well, there's a fourth one that cuts across them. So one was green infrastructure, and so really making the best of our green infrastructure, looking after it and promoting it. And there's all sorts of things around that we discussed. Obviously, biodiversity, local production of food and consumption, rewilding, and there's obviously health benefits, both mental and physical. We also mentioned education as well, which is a point was being made there. And there's also trying to develop that nature connection, so using green infrastructure to develop that connection with nature to make it real. There's connections with air quality, there's also water quality, of course, there's also blue and green network that we need to be looking at. And we also need to keep in mind inclusivity, which pops up in all of these. So there was a lot of stuff around green infrastructure, looking after it, making the best of it and using it.
And then we were starting to look at water pollution. Reducing microplastics was generally, and one of our group knew quite a lot about how we can retrofit things very easily to washing machines and things to stop every day plastics getting into the system in the first place, because I think it's quite shocking how the quantity of plastics getting into the system, so there should be ways of reducing that. Also reducing more sewage and chemicals and toxins getting into our waterways. I think that's something we were just starting to have a look at as well.
Amazing. Well done. Back to education. Can we get, I really like the idea of the tiny forest, which actually is a known thing. Can we get young people involved in that? Can we make it into part of an education project that, so it includes, I guess, inclusivity across the whole. Does it include the whole, kind of stakeholder list across the community?
Okay. There was, one interesting point was made was that there's quite a lot of people, either individually or in groups, trying to tackle some of the issues that we're talking about today, but they're not connected. So what represented on here is a community network, linkages between people, which could, or groups, which is kind of missing at the moment, and it could be better represented in how we do things.
And you've got to incentivise people to do things. You've got to make it easy and accessible for people to actually go out there and actually green their lives up a little bit and deal with the issues.
We then worked on developing selection criteria, which will help us evaluate and rank the proposed initiatives. This will enable us to bring forward the projects the group finds most viable and practical. Here are some of the criteria measures that were devised by the group.
How much impact will it have?
To do something initially that will be an initiator to attract more interest.
Can you do one thing and then obviously if that works then do the next, so it's not all or nothing across either scale or across time.
Scalability.
Yeah.
Is the solution circular?
So we're happy to dream, but there's also the fact that we need to combat the reality of what quite possibly could happen, because it's all good dreaming, but you can still end up with high rises. So it's finding a way to balance the reality with the dream.
The dream is what keeps us going.
Can we get young people involved in that? Can we make it into part of an education project that, so it includes, I guess, inclusivity across the whole.
How long till we get results?
How will it be managed and by who?
I do see people of all walks of life coming to get involved in this.
And then, yes, it could be grant funding, public sector funding, but it could also be private sector as well. It could tap into the business community.
The task of our final workshop is to score the long list of proposed initiatives against the selection criteria so that we can develop a list of priorities. In partnership with the community and working with the council, the most promising initiatives will be developed into concrete action plans.